In Eritrea, we have nothing.
It's the only country in the world where there is no private media.
We have dictatorship.
There's a term we normally use in Eritrea, we say, this guy has just disappeared.
People are afraid of their own shadow.
There are no journalists in Eritrea. There are government cadres in Eritrea.
And Isaias is a very insecure person.
I wish I knew. I don't know what he's afraid of.
All journalists that are currently operating in Eritrea are journalists who work for state media.
The journalists, they don't write with honesty, with neutrality. They have to follow this, certain guidelines. They have to tune to what the government likes. They have this direction, what to do, how to do it. It is like a propaganda.
On September 18, 2002, all privately owned newspapers were banned. All their proprietors were either taken to prison or fled the country. So since then, there hasn't been any independent news outlet in the country. Everything is censored, and if anything is deemed to be political in nature, then even people working for the state media are taken to prison.
Even in situations where they have remained very loyal and covered the regime positively, any indication of trying to be objective, to cover some stories for public interest, is still as dangerous.
There's no freedom of expression.
Sometimes I say even the right to breathe fresh air, you have to get a permission.
There is no freedom of silence. Even if I want to keep silent, then the security forces would come and ask me, are you plotting something against the government that you keep quiet?
It is to this extent that Eritrean situation is bad.
Eritrea has been at war for so many years. I would say from early 60s until we got independence in early 1991, there was a lot of war and fighting. So when we got independence, so many people are happy. And for the first time that Eritrea was ruled by its own children. In 1994, for the first time, the Eritrean government came up with this new initiative that people must go for military training. It was a kind of compulsory military training. When they were about to finish and then return, it's when now the war between Ethiopia and Eritrea started. This is the border conflict which was started in 1998.
After the war, things have started going bad. The Eritrean government lost in every sense. They lost the war, they lost politically, and diplomatically they became isolated. I think the more and more isolation has made Isaias look into himself and looking inwardly and started to behave in a manner that has not been seen before.
Those who criticize the government were taken into detention without trial and they just disappeared like that. Some of the civilians were removed from their house and then given to the soldiers. They are saying that these are the government property. There was no even freedom of expression. There was no multimedia. People are not free to talk.
His own comrades he has imprisoned since 2001. The only crime they did was they asked him, let's make an assessment. Why did we go into the war? Was it necessary? In order to correct it and go forward. And he wouldn't heed to that. The power became concentrated. The popular participation became a history of the past, and it became a one-man rule.
The silence of the people made me leave Eritrea. If I say I'm the Saleh, my people would say, so what? Even if I have a cause, if the people would stand by me, then I would not mind to pay my life for this aim. But if I would say, okay, I'm dying for you, and you would say, so what?
I was using different stories like as if I'm writing about love stories or something like that. So later, some people came to realize what I was doing. So I was threatened and then I had to leave the country.
It was really dangerous for me to live in Eritrea, and I was really fearing for my life. Maybe one day I will be spotted and caught up and end up maybe I will be killed or I will be languishing in prison as the others are now. From 2007 until 2009, I have been in hiding.
a country that doesn't have a constitution, which is the supreme law under which every person, whether government or citizen, have to be governed, which is a social contract between the governed and the governed. If you don't have that, how can you say I have a right?
When Afwerki took power, they all agreed it was transitional. They needed to now begin a state-building process. They developed a transitional constitution, which was progressive to a certain extent, with clear Bill of Rights.
Freedom of association, freedom of worship, freedom of political association, freedom of press, every freedom was there.
But Afwerki continued to invoke the transitional nature of that process, and whenever he would be questioned,
he said, Eritrea is not ready. We are in a state of war, in a state of reconstruction. We don't need this. He shelved it.
We have no independent court. We have no functioning parliament. We have nothing. All the power is in the hand of the president. Let's take, this is a basket full of eggs, and the president is having them on his head. At his absence, we will have all the eggs at the ground.
Shayas control of the minds of the people starts from the struggle era. When somebody leaves the movement, or if you talk of the movement is something bad, then they follow you where you are.
In the first place, he is all-knowing. When he appears, even in his own subject, he wants to tell you that he knows it. This kind of people are dangerous.
I cannot even trust my own family because I never know. My families are back at home. We've never met. I don't know where my father and my mother is. So I don't know at this time now. Maybe sometimes even the government can give them money. Don't do this one. So they don't have any option.
That is purposely done to create fear that the EPLF or the revolution hand is long. You cannot escape it wherever you are.
Even your own friend, you can't trust. That is the power of the Eritrean government.
Any freedom which allows people to interact, to participate freely, and cross-fertilize with ideas and that is dangerous for him. There is no political party because he doesn't allow political party, because there is no association even. There is no NGO, no civil society. Because any organization he is afraid of. Even the religious organization controls them. He has his own spies placed because he's afraid of anything that he does not control.
You can talk only with somebody, really you know him and you trust him. But if you know your brother or sister or other family member is in support of the government, then you fear from your family member too.
Recently, just about 350 people died in Italy. And still, the government can still deny. People are not just running away simply because there is a lot of this forceful military training or whatever. But there is a lot of poverty, no education, no future. It's your country, but you are not free to live.
The regime can only be described as dictatorial. It believes in controlling the public and private life of every individual citizen.
Anybody who knows the average temperatures in Eritrea are 35 to 40, people being held in metallic containers as the place where they've been for over 10 years.
The government doesn't believe in freedom because it comes from a long history of a very controlled environment in the independence struggle, 30 years of controlling very closely a group of fighters, and it kind of created a machine which controls the life of every individual.
Maybe hundreds of thousands of prisoners are now in prison, but nobody has access to these people.
There was a woman who became paralyzed because they imprisoned her in the container. And you know why they imprisoned her in the container? She was a Pentecostal. A Pentecostal is not accepted in Eritrea. They asked her to repent and change. She did not. She was in prison for so many months and she became lame when she came out.
One man was in prison in Eritrea. He was detained in a police station for 4 years. After 4 years, the police chief came to him and said, okay, can you write why you are in prison? He was in prison for the reasons that he doesn't know.
Primarily, what should happen is a coordinated, coherent approach to encouraging the young people in Eritrea to seek a joint action rather than everybody take an individual action of leaving the country.
Article 19 and other international organizations have been in the process for a long time. We began a campaign which we called Campaign to Free Eritrean Journalists. We knew very well that the campaign will not give us the result of them being released, but it would bring the issues of their continued incarceration to the limelight. And two, it would be able to bring it to UN bodies and other international partners that continue to work with the Eritrean government.
The international community is doing much more than it was doing in the early days. The fight in the diaspora is more coordinated than it was a few years back. So the only piece missing at the moment is what's happening inside Eritrea.
We had the African nations in the Human Rights Council being able to, one, develop a resolution seeking to have a special mandate holder at the UN on Eritrea. And it was one of perhaps the best things that has happened in a decade because this was the very first such resolution developed, proposed, and highly lobbied for by African states.
Let's have one united media front, and we had to confront this media propaganda that we have in Eritrea.
We've now got an underground newspaper that gets published every month, written in collaboration with people inside the country and outside the country, and it's printed inside the country and distributed inside the country as well. And the objective of that newspaper is just to get people to see that what they're feeling is shared right across the country.
The international media world and press world also to give attention to the repressive situation that exists, which does not allow any room to journalists or people of media.
This government has gone to a level whereby could lead to the charging of Isaias Afwerki in the International Criminal Court. The only reason Eritrea is not getting much attention is because of the smartness of the government by closing it up.
We all make mistakes, we all have sins. But if he repents and says that, okay, I will call everybody under international supervision and make an international reconciliation conference supervised by the international community, African Union, United Nations, European Union. And he is willing to hand over, but that would be the best thing.
More than 1 million Eritreans are abroad and they are paying 2% of their income to the regime. Trying to stop these 2% charges on Eritrean diaspora people through intimidation and the extortion, because these are providing lifeline for the regime.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
There is an end to everything.
Eritreans have suffered enough.
Whatever experiment that they've been conducting on our people has failed miserably on all measures.
I think when Eritreans one day wake up and then they said, our sufferings is enough. Let us come up with durable solution, how we try to overcome all the problems we have. It's when now I think Eritrea will be okay. And I don't know when.
It's time to see what the whole world has seen, and hand over power to the people, custodians of that power.
There has been systems who were dictatorial. In Uganda there was Idi Amin, in Siad Barre in Somalia. He is going to end. Whether he will end in a peaceful way or not, it's his choice.
I am afraid for my life. I have to remain anonymous.
You can use my name. You can show my face.
I am not afraid for my life. I am afraid for my family's life.
What do I fear for? I mean, when young people are being drowned, what am I? I'm one life.
I'm more afraid of fear itself and what it is doing to my people. In the end, right is right and wrong is wrong. And we cannot fight fear by being fearful.
If I can't stand up and become a voice for them, who would do it?
The most important weapon in the hands of an oppressor is our minds, and unless we free our own minds, then we cannot free our people.
There is a price to pay. It doesn't come without the price. So if I pay my life for a change, I am willing to do it.
The journalists, they have to take the responsibility to expose and stand for justice. And now it is time that the world is also giving attention to Eritrea, and we should capitalize this opportunity very much.
The Eritreans don't give up. One day you will have the space to exercise your profession.
It is not the strength of the government. The silence has enabled the government to do whatever it wants.
And to the other professionals in the region, in our neighboring countries, and also the world at large, pay attention and give voice to the Eritreans who have become voiceless.